I recently had one of my subscribers tell me to make a video about female privilege. And shout outs to the subscriber known as Ty Rapper Guy. And Ty Rapper, yeah, he's definitely the subscriber who has recommended this video. So shout outs to you, man. Anyway, this was actually an interesting idea because this is when I posted the video called White Privilege versus Gay Privilege, and he brought up an interesting point and how crazy it is that females actually get to have this privilege. Now we get to hear about male privilege, but male privilege in reality I think is a myth. Now I'm not trying to say that men and women don't deserve to be equal, because I believe in equality between men and women. I'm not gonna sit here to try to suck up to anybody, but I'm just saying this to clarify that I'm not saying that men need to have the upper hand and be the boss of society or whatever it is. But what I am saying is that women actually have privilege in this country, and tons of it. Well, for starters, in the court in the courtrooms, the jury is always going to be on the woman's side, and fathers are viewed as second class citizens here in the United States. Whether it's the jury or the courtroom or the government, they will always be on the woman's side because the woman is viewed as the weaker person. Therefore, they will always protect her, and she always has the protection. Oh, and when a man wants to voice his opinion and make a difference in society or even in the country, a woman's voice is more likely to be heard. When it comes to men's issues, people are more inclined to hear a woman's voice than a man's voice. If that's not privilege, then I don't know what is. And as a matter of fact, there's a book called Men on Strike. And that book I read this book like 6 years ago. It was what actually this is how I learned about MGTOW. I learned it from there. And I was a little, and I thought, I didn't know it was pronounced MGTOW, so I kept calling it MGTOW all the time, which stands for Men Going Their Own Way, for some of you that aren't even aware of the internet lingo that goes around in the surface web. And men are actually avoiding getting a job because of the whole issue with sexual harassment, how men can get in trouble. Men are actually dropping out of college at an incredible rate because of the whole awareness of campus rape and how men get falsely accused of rape or sexual assault. And even when it comes to college campuses, they seem to kind of like lean towards supporting the woman and having her back. And the man is always perpetrated as the predator. And also when it comes to men, they are also avoiding marriage at an incredible rate because men don't feel like marriage is not safe for them anymore. They feel like it's just not safe. I mean, when you stop to think about it, they don't feel safe because because when it comes to family courts, they're very biased towards men. And when it comes to divorce and alimony, that really hits a man like a nuclear bomb. And when it comes to parental rights, even if the woman is not fit to take care of the kids, she somehow will end up having the custody of the children. The man will have like either zero custody or he only gets the kids like on the weekends. And she has the kids with her most of the time. And as a matter of fact, courtrooms are, and there's also the Violence Against Women's Act, which was actually a bill that was passed in Boston, Massachusetts to protect women and their rights. And it even says that women are the victims and men are the predators. That's what the bill says, by the way. And we're always, and I'm not going to lie, women are objectified by men, especially in the entertainment industry. Just 20 years ago, women were what's it called, advocating for independence and empowerment, and they were actually against. There was a campaign against the objectification of women. Even Naomi Wolf's book, The Beauty Myth, was actually that was written so beautifully. Spoke out against that. But nowadays, women actually are objectifying themselves, and smartphones and what's it called, hookup apps are replacing Johns, pimps, and madams, also known as female pimps. So that tells me right there that women are, in a way, objectifying themselves nowadays, despite the fact that a lot of them still don't want to be referred to and seen as objects. I'm not saying that this is all women, just to clarify. But here's the thing: women. But we see when a man wants to speak and have a voice, he's ignored, because in society, men are told that us men, we are told that we are garbage. We are told that we are worthless. We are told that we are violent. We are told that we are predators. And society always paints us as these dirty Neanderthals who are brainless and can't even do simple tasks such as mopping the floor. And, which is kind of weird because I'm not an example of that kind of man at all. And with that being said, I find it a little bit weird that they say that men can't even do simple tasks like mopping the floors, because I've been doing this since I was a kid anyway. Mopping the floors, like, I knew how to do that. That was a piece of cake. So with that being said, I find it a little bit weird that men are painted as these villains and monsters. No, and the funny thing is that not only is it that a man's voice is never heard, but when a woman speaks, her voice is most likely heard. Even in the transgender community, a trans woman, her voice is heard in the transgender community. But notice that you never hear about a trans male speaking out in the community, because it's just not as popular. So a woman's voice, people are more likely to listen to a woman speak than a man. So if that's not female privilege, quite frankly, I don't know what is. Oh, and let's not forget something. Women, they're actually succeeding in this country, and men aren't. Men don't get jobs anymore. They're dropping out of college at an alarming rate. They have lost their sense of ambition. Men have opted out of getting married, which is sad because what happened to love and marriage and unity, holy matrimony, and for sickness and in health, for rich or for poor. Those are all beautiful vows and beautiful words. I mean, the concept itself sounds beautiful, but if you cannot apply it to the real world, then forget it. And we're also told that we're weak if we were to cry. I mean, even women have been conditioned to believe that if a man cries, then he's somehow a wimp. Last I checked, us men are human beings. Just because we're supposed to supposedly be the stronger sex doesn't mean that we are somehow what's it called, heartless and don't have emotions. We cry because we're human. That's obviously why. So I find that a little bit strange how men are accused of this male privilege. And if you're a white guy and a male, then you're a bigger target as far as being a sexist, because you're a straight white male, because that means like supposedly you're somehow extra privileged, which is not even true. Because as far as I'm concerned, women have so much privilege, they don't even realize how much power they have. They're doing better than men in the United States. They're the ones who are more ambitious. Men don't have that ambition anymore, because of how society refers to them and treats them like crap. Women, they're the ones who are climbing the corporate ladder. They are becoming CEOs and they're holding executive positions in the Fortune 500 companies, and you expect me to believe that male privilege is still a thing? I don't think so. People are more likely to listen to what a woman says than a man. People are more likely to take the woman's side in a case of domestic violence, but when the man is the victim, everybody just ignores him. Also, when it comes to college and schools, they're the ones who are graduating. Men are not. When it comes to being protected in the system, they're the ones who are being protected. Men are not. When it comes to getting government assistance like food stamps because she's a single mom, people sympathize with a single mom. People laugh at a single dad. They call him a bum. Women, come on, they have so much power over men in this country, and that's a fact. Male privilege was a thing back then, but if it was like 1925, but let's face it, women have a lot more power than men now. I don't care what anybody says. So, after all, that's the magic of a woman's touch, isn't it? So, yeah, female privilege, don't underestimate that power. But if you really stop to think about it, men make this mistake, and they still do decades and hundreds of years later, that you never underestimate the power of a woman. Because women, they can be a lot more dangerous than they look. They're a lot stronger than they appear to be. So, with that being said, you never underestimate a woman. Ever. So I find it a little bit strange how, women are so privileged, and then they keep, complaining about, not all of them, but many of them complain about like, oh, we don't have rights or whatever. And men have the privilege. Male privilege is not a thing. And you can make the argument about how a woman gets paid 20 cents less than a man when it comes to earning her paychecks. But as I do recall, they're the ones who are climbing the corporate ladder. They're the ones getting executive positions in Fortune 500, and they're running their own business. And they're the ones who are becoming like directors, executive producers. The list goes on and on and on. And on top of that, they're more likely to get a job as teachers than a man. Another thing about women is that, when it comes down to it, even if, and even when it comes to court cases, even if she's the predator, she can still be innocent. A woman actually, a couple of years ago, I forgot how many years ago it was, but I think it was like 6 years ago, a woman was intimate with a 15-year-old kid in the state of California. Now, in the state of California, the age of consent is 18. She slept with him, and she got pregnant. But instead of being sentenced to prison for a couple of years, she was acquitted, and the boy, who was 15 years old, he was charged with having to pay 18 years of child support. Now, in the original story, she even admitted this herself. She not only, should have been charged with statutory rape, but the funny thing is, she got a slap on the wrist. And this kid had to pay child support, 18 years worth. He was a 15-year-old kid in California. And as I do recall, in the state of California, the age of consent is 18. So why isn't she on the sex offenders list? She should have been on the sex offenders list just like every other man out there. And just like that teacher who slept with a 6th grader in 2003. Who, by the way, was actually married with a husband at home. So I find that a little bit weird that it has to turn out this way. So if all the rights and the advantages I've just listed you the advantages women have over men. If that's not female privilege, then I don't know what is. And if you still believe that they're the victims of society and men still have privilege more so than the women, then I don't know what is. Besides, when it comes to shelters for abused women, um, there's more than 30, or there are hundreds of them all over the country. How many shelters for abused men exist in the United States? Only one, and that's in California. So I don't get like how people can sit here and complain about male privilege when clearly female privilege is much, much stronger. When a woman is a victim of domestic violence, people listen to her and they sympathize with her. But she gets society support when she's the victim. But when a man does it, when a man is a victim, he's laughed at and called, and he's referred to as a pussy. And as far as I'm concerned, that to me is a bias. How can you talk about men and women can be equal with this thing about feminism when clearly men's voices and their men's issues are ignored? The real hero I can say in all this was there's this woman who opened a shelter for abused men and abused women in the UK. Now, she's the hero because she did something in the 70s no one dared to do. She opened shelters for battered and abused women in the UK, but she opened shelters for battered and abused men because she realized that men can be victims of domestic violence, whether it's physical or verbal abuse. So, with that being said, she was ahead of her time. But not many people know about her because she has been censored in the mainstream media and the news, and historically, she will be nothing more than an enigma and nothing more than a mere shadow, or should I say, dust in the wind. So I find it very weird that people still complain about male privilege when clearly, you know, female privilege is the thing that exists, not male privilege. Because I've lived here in the United States for 24 years and I've never had any privilege. I've never had a single shred of privilege. I have never been privileged in my entire existence on this earth alone. Maybe male privilege were to exist if it was like other countries in Africa or other countries in Asia. But I'm not saying that, you know, men deserve to get away with crimes, but two wrongs don't make a right. If a man committed a crime such as statutory rape, then he deserves to go to prison. Maybe forever. Definitely forever. Excuse me. But if a woman commits statutory rape, why does she get a slap on the wrist? She needs to be in prison for the rest of her life. You know, sleeping with underage boys, like, that's disgusting. Period. Like, I just don't get this. So honestly, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, defend women or men for committing crimes. But I'm just saying that two wrongs don't make a right. And that's it. I mean, I'm kind of fed up with what's it called, double standards. I mean, I believe in equality between men and women, but until it stops being something mentioned on paper, then we could actually apply it in the real world as soon as we wake up. But the majority of us don't wake up. I mean, if feminism was really about equality, then why do we have an MRA, men's rights activists? Why do we have MGTOWs? Why do we have any of this stuff? The system needs to stop supporting women so much. I mean, their excuse is, of course, is, oh well, there needs to be equity. We need to give women a little bit more power so that they can be more equal to the man. But the funny thing is, men, they don't even wanna. They don't have ambition anymore. They live with that. They live at home. They're opting out of marriage. They're opting out of getting a job. They're even opting out of what's it called? Getting married. Men don't. A lot of men also don't want to have kids because of the issues of child support and child custody and everything. One more story I'd like to share before I go. There was a story, and this made headline news, but not many people know about this. This man and woman were actually a couple, and they had a baby. But the man wanted to be in the child's life, but the woman actually gave the baby up for adoption, and the man didn't even have a say in the matter. So why is it that a woman actually has more parental rights than a man if feminism truly is about equality? I mean, I know feminism is about equality, but if gender equality is a thing in this country, why is it that a woman has more parental rights than a man, more privilege in college campuses, and she's, and councils are more likely to seek out to help them more so than the guy? And why is it when it comes to a society and having a person having their voices heard, they're more likely to listen to a woman more so than a man? And why is it that a woman can get away with sexually of statutory rape? She can get away with statutory rape even if she admits it in court, but yet a 15-year-old kid gets 18 years of child support? Come on. Not to mention when it comes to what's it called, female privilege. When women commit murder, like when it comes to serial killers, women don't get caught until 8.6 years. For men, it's even half the time. So that means in 4.3 years, male serial killers will be arrested after 4.3 years. Women get away with murders. Female serial killers, they get away with murder for 8.6 years before they get caught. And you know who said that? It was a woman who used to be an FBI profiler named Candice DeLaw. But those statistics are never heard. And I find, and it's weird because, men and women die of the same. The number one killer for men and women in the United States is heart disease in the U.S. alone. So I find it a little bit weird that somehow, men are, and no one ever pays attention to men. And besides, let's not forget something. Us men, we die more than women. Whether it comes to going to war overseas, or alcoholism, drug addiction, diseases, and even doing dangerous jobs, whether it's construction or, carpentry or whatever it is. And the list goes on and on. When it comes to dangerous jobs, 90% of men die more so than women. So, the irony astounds me, really. Like I said, men and women deserve to be equal. I mean, I can't stress this enough. But don't talk about gender equality when women can have more advantages, more so over the man. And that's a fact. I mean, even when it comes to men and women who are celebrities, like the story with Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. Johnny Depp was the victim of domestic violence, and she admitted to punching him and physically abusing him. And the funny thing is, he was seen as the bad guy. Hollywood betrayed Johnny Depp by saying that he was being cruel to his wife and she was only defending her life by physically abusing him and beating him. And you know what the irony is? She admitted in a recording that she punched him in the face, that she abused him. But when it comes to Hollywood news, everybody was on her side until the divorce was finalized and he lost like hundreds of millions of dollars in the settlement. Then everybody was on Johnny Depp's side. It's too late. The damage has been done. You can't take back those words. I mean, the tongue is like a gun. You pull the trigger of a gun, you can't take the bullet back. So when you say those words, you can't take them back. That's it. This video was a little too long, but I had a field day with this one. Anyway, I'm done with this. That's just how it is. But you know what? I'm pretty sure that's not the only reason why men are opting out of marriage anyway, for example. Some men just don't like being in relationships. They just like their peace and quiet. So it's not a sin if you don't want to get married. At least it shouldn't be, as far as human nature is concerned. Do as you wish. But until then, not only does society have to change, but things have got to change around here in the system. Two wrongs don't make a right. But America seems though it will never learn. America will never learn. They think that two wrongs make a right, but they never do. Because when you fight fire with fire, it creates a bigger hazard. But hey, that hazard is going to get so big, America itself will implode and explode like a nuclear bomb.